that has come here already on time today. We'd like to thank you for attending again and welcome you to the second session this week on machinery and technology. Thomas Nielsen from the faculty of the Workland School of Agriculture, located here in Central Alberta, is our presenter again today and presented us some great information on Monday. And even on Monday, we talked about the equipment, but also the new technology. And Thomas is going to build on that this afternoon and be talking about the timelines and how technology has changed. Just remind everybody, if you could keep your video on and yourself muted until we get to a point we can open up for questions. If you have any questions, I'll be watching the chat line and watching for those questions as we go. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it back over to Thomas to talk about machinery and in particular technology in agriculture today.
Okay, thank you. I happen to come into the spotlight here. Oh, let's see what's going on. There we go. Is this working better? I must have changed the view here, so I don't hear anyone complaining.
We don't see the view at the present time.
Okay.
We see you.
Okay, they can only see me. Good. Good evening, everyone. So today is the second session. So before we get started, I think we should deal with a couple of items that relates to today's session to make sure we're more comfortable. So what I'm going to ask all of you to do is to, as Graham said, please do keep your cameras turned on. But go to your tile, the picture that shows on you. There are 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, and then click on Hide Self View. So if you hide Self View, you turn off your own view, and then in that way, your brain is becoming less exhausted from attending this webinar. Your mirror neurons, you see, they don't spend all that extraordinary amount of time and effort and energy trying to figure out where you are in the picture and trying to engage. And it's trying to create a real connection. So once you've hid the self view, you need to know that your camera is still on and we can all see your wonderful face here today, of course. I'm glad you could all make it. So that was the first item. The second item I wanted to share with is that I am actually going to share the link to the presentation. Because today we are going to cover a series of fairly technical topics. So when you're in the presentation and when you hear us using terms and terminology, and if you find it confusing, if you go to slides 42 and 43, that's where you can find some definitions and explanations of some common terms of some machinery that we use here in Western Canada in the grain farming context. Lastly, I believe it was Monica, if my memory serves me right, who asked questions a little bit more about, you know, I want to understand better how do you grow corn in Canada? And Graham and me and Brady and a few others commented and said that, well, most of the corn that you grow here, again, we use equipment for that. We don't have any manual seeding. We all have machinery for that. However, most of the corn that is grown in Southern Alberta is used for feed for cattle. So our crop cycle may look a little bit different. But so I don't cover that specifically. Okay, thank you for letting us know about internet problems. For those of you who are very interested, if you go to slide 44, and I want to track your attention to this, there is a site called Farm Food 360. And what that is that it's a production by the University of Guelph and other organizations in Eastern Canada that have put together a 360 series. So what you can do, the videos are available on YouTube. and essentially gives you a 360 view of a farm, and they go through various growing seasons and crops that are grown. And if my memory serves me right, corn is covered in their segments. There are also other key resources listed here. For those of you who are unfamiliar with canola and have never heard about the term canola before, this is an excellent refresher, and I'm sure you will find it useful, because when you talk to your colleagues in your own native country and you tell them that they're growing a lot of canola in Canada, they're going to start asking you, well, what is that really? And this is a great resource to go to get more information. Then lastly, we also have provided for you a timeline of the Canadian agriculture that is available for you as a refresher if you want to go back and reflect on that material. Okay. There are a few other links that are here as well, and use them as you deem to be appropriate. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the role of technology. So here we're going to cover a fairly large swath of different technologies that are being used on the farm. Many of the technologies that we have implemented currently on the farm were developed some 20, 30 to even further back several decades ago, and they've been available to the economy for the most part. But it's not until now, the last couple of years, that we're really seeing an uptick and an increase in the trends of adoption. So the last bullet point here, decision support software, the use of big data, the clouds, and the future trend, that's really where a lot of industry participants want to take farming. They want farming to become more integral and more connected into the global world of data and how that is being used. Not just from a sense of production point of view, but being able to integrate data on weather conditions, on soil conditions in the ground, but also information about the markets, what's happening to the markets. So before we jump in and start about the technology specifically, I want to show two charts here. The first one, that is to your top right, the first top right one, shows the price of urea. Urea is a fertilizer that is used, and there are many competing products that are available as well here in North America. In Saskatchewan, the province just to the east, we have a very large mining operation, Nutrien, that produces nitrogen and potassium, so key fertilizer ingredients. What this chart is showing is the price of urea, which is a fertilizer. It's used by grain farmers to fertilize the crops. It's applied in amounts for most of the time in the spring and the fall. And what this is showing is the price from over the last some decades. So we see that there was a spike in the price of urea in 2007, 2008. Now, some of you might have been in your early years of schooling at this time, and that may seem a long time ago for you. However, this is the time when the global financial crisis hit, which caused a lot of economic uncertainty. And one of the impacts is the prices of everything increased and spiked tremendously here. So that's sort of the sign of that, as well as oil prices went up tremendously during this period of time. Fast forward to current times, however, 2022, that's almost at the end of the bar. We don't need to necessarily know what the price level is, but what it's showing is that the price of urea is record high. Over the last 20 years in North America, we have not seen prices for the fertilizer reaching this level before. Never before have we seen that happening. There was a spike in the late last year, and then a sharp decline in January and February. But then in February, there was the geopolitical conflict created by Putin's war of Ukraine, which caused prices to go up again radically. So what's happening to grain prices? So for example, I took price of wheat, and that's the bar that's in the bottom. It's showing the price of wheat for the last 2 decades. So the vertical axis shows the price of wheat for the future nearest futures contract. And again, it shares a lot of similar trends. There was a big spike in 2007, 2008, coinciding with the oil price spike and the global financial crisis hit. There's been a few spikes in between as well. But here again, in 2022, we see prices going up. So what does this all mean? What is the impact on technology, and why should we even care as youth, as professionals in this industry? Why does this matter? Well, generally, we would say that when the input prices increases to this dramatic point, farmers and producers are looking for active ways to economize or minimize the amount of fertilizer they use, to reduce wastage, to improve their efficiency by which they use it. They may apply less nitrogen on the land, or they may find other crops to grow that can capture nitrogen through the root system. Then they may essentially go and find other crops that they can grow to plant or apply smaller quantities. In order to do all of this that we just described, we need to start using technology. We need to map the soils and see what are the soil organic content like, what is the level of nitrogen that is there, how healthy is the ground. We need to also start looking at various types of seeds and understand better what are the seeds that would be the most conducive to a crop season where you could not apply the same amount of fertilizers as before. So with that as a context, we're going to jump immediately out into the future. I am going to show 2 videos here. One is done up by EY. EY is Ernst & Young, who worked with Microsoft. And essentially what they've done is they've developed a teaser for the future of agriculture, how it may come to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. I'm going to make sure that in the settings, I need to make sure that we have we need to make options for video clip, and
with MailChimp, you can design more engaging marketing assets in no time at all, thanks to our AI-powered creative assistant.
Traditional agriculture has always used data, but today's data challenges are increasingly more complex. Data must be harnessed in new ways and provide better insights. Over the next generation, our global population will continue to grow. By 2050, there will be 9 billion people on the Earth. And it's expected we will need to produce 70% more food using less land and fewer scarce resources. To meet this challenge, the agricultural industry must evolve. Microsoft and EY are empowering a digital transformation in agriculture by connecting data to the cloud, driving innovation and value. What if you could predict the best crops to grow using the power of data? Recognize crop disease or pests faster. Connect with vendors seamlessly. Doing all this knowing you control your own data. With data captured from each field and connected to predictive analysis, farmers have an unprecedented view of their crops. Edge computing will lower the cost of field oversight and accelerate the response to crop threats. Artificial intelligence will expose inefficiencies and unlock new insights to enhance production. Mixed reality will make a remote mechanic an expert and give agronomists the complete view of a farm. Robotics will add a new dimension to how and where crops can be produced. Microsoft and EY have the experience, trust, and scale to enable innovation throughout the global food value chain. Working together, we can rise to the challenge of feeding the world. This is data-driven agriculture. This is agriculture on Azure. Because when the world of farming harvests data, the world works better.
Okay, that was the first one. A bit of a teaser there. Let's open up the second one here.
Over the next 2 decades, a technological wave will revolutionize the efficiency of farms all over the world. It can't come soon enough. By the year 2050, the human population will be nearly 10 billion, which means we'll need to have doubled the amount of food we now produce. This is an examination of the agricultural innovations coming down the pipeline that will help get us there. The industry has undergone major developments over the last century. 100 years ago, farming looked like this. Today, it looks like this, and tomorrow, it'll look something like this. These changes have allowed many of us to do other things with our lives. In 1900, about 11 million agricultural workers produced the food for 76 million people. Today, just 6.5 million workers feed 321.4 million Americans. 2 factors were most responsible for this surge in productivity: engines and the widespread availability of electricity. Today, the innovations on our immediate horizon include autonomous pickers. UK researchers have already created one that gathers strawberries twice as fast as humans. The challenge will be creating robotic pickers that can switch between all kinds of crops. Robots or drones that can precisely remove weeds or shoot them with a targeted spritz of pesticide, using 90% less chemicals than a conventional blanket sprayer. For the organic farmer, they could zap the weeds with a laser instead. This could have a big impact. The UN estimates that each year, between 20 and 40% of global crop yields are destroyed by pests and disease. Tiny sensors and cameras will monitor crop growth and alert farmers on their smartphones if there's a problem or when it's the best time to harvest. The Bonnie Rob can take a soil sample, liquidize it, then analyze its pH and phosphorus levels all in real time. As a proof of concept for all this autonomous farming technology, researchers at Harper Adams in the UK plan to grow and harvest an entire hectare of barley without humans ever entering the field. Companies like Ag Robotics have already commercialized software that analyzes drone-captured infrared images to spot unhealthy vegetation. Then, like a real-life game of Sim Farmer, the grower is alerted on their device when a troubled area is identified. Machine learning is regularly improving the system's ability to differentiate between varieties of crops and the weeds that threaten them. Not to be left out, a company called Mavericks contracts 100 pilots to fly light aircraft that are outfitted with multispectral cameras on data-gathering missions over large farms throughout the country. For an even wider view, Planet Labs operates a fleet of CubeSats that take weekly images of entire farms from space to help monitor crops. Other companies are creating analytics software to act as farm management systems, allowing growers of all sizes to deal with this new tsunami of data. And the Farmers Business Network combines data from many farms into one giant pool to give its members the power of macro-level insights that have traditionally only been available to corporate mega farms. Vertical farms are essentially
So we watched the first 3 minutes of this. Let's see here. So we watched the first 3 minutes of the future of farming. For those of you who are interested, you can watch the remainder of the clip that goes through different type of farming methods. You saw they gave a teaser there on vertical farms. The approaches that are presented, the technologies and the promise of the future of farming that is given by both of these 2 video clips rely on a very strong contingent assumption, namely access to data. Large amounts of data, but not just any type of data. It requires data that comes from pictures, photographs taken of growing fields, as well as information on the soil content level variables that can be used to identify components of land productivity. It can tell us about what's the nutrient content, are there any deficiencies, as well as weather data, of course. But the trickiest one of them all is having these pictures over the growing season that tells you how the crop is going under various conditions in the various geographic areas. And that is a very complex and time-consuming task. So although the technologies, so artificial intelligence and machine learning holds great promise, it can result in some material benefits to the farmer. It's important to keep in mind that in order for these technologies to actually have an impact on farmers and farming, they have to have access to information that is relevant to the regions where the crops are being grown. So they're not agnostic. I think where some people misunderstand technology in agriculture is that they think the technology is like an iPhone. Everybody can have an iPhone. I have an iPhone, and I'm sure all of you have a different type of smartphone with different brands, and we use it to communicate via WhatsApp. As a matter of fact, I do know that Graham has you on a WhatsApp group, and it's all compatible. It doesn't matter which time zone you're in, which language you speak, which operating system your phone is running on, or even the telephone provider. However, in agriculture, the way the technologies grow is because they're so very dependent on our biological system. It has to be very, very specifically tied to that. So I hope I've been able to impress upon you that there is a lot of potential opportunities ahead, but there are also some very big hurdles we must cross first. I want to show you quickly just the timeline, and this is a very short timeline. It should actually start in the 1950s, 1960s, and earlier than that, when we started sending out spy satellites and so forth. But for the purpose of today, we're just going to pick on a couple. We're going to talk about yield monitors that originally were commercial. The first commercial or even pre-commercial model was launched in the early 1990s. You had yield monitor with GPS system, precision soil sampling. The concept around variable rate fertility became more and more realistic in the mid-1990s. Automated guidance, we're going to show what that is later, and that came out just before the year 2000. And then automated section control and variable rate seeding. We have already, 2 days ago, we talked about the John Deere See and Spray. We also showcased you the DOT. And I believe also at the last section, we did talk about the John Deere autonomous tractor that has come out and was launched at the Las Vegas Consumer Electronics Show this spring, actually. So let's first start with Imagery. So with Imagery comes, that's when you take essentially the picture of the land using satellites, or you take aerial pictures, or you have unmanned aerial aircrafts taking those pictures, or remotely sensor. Here at Olds College, we use a combination of all of these. They generate pictures like these that you see here in the picture, and that is being used to assist in positioning technology. And it can help us in determining yield mapping, in identifying where we should be doing soil sampling. And it also gives us ideas about how much nitrogen to apply, so variable rate applications. And it also allows us to provide more site-specific guidance, not at a field level, but at a subfield level, and even at a lower resolution as you also. Because this is such an important topic, I'm going to show next 2 videos. One is from the Canadian federal government, and it's talking about how the Canadian Federal Agriculture Department and the Canadian Space Agency are working together to support growth in productivity in agriculture.
Invigor Hybrid Canola has led the way with Invigorate to help you get the most out of your canola. Easy to understand seeding rate recommendations promote more consistent canola.
Canada has a rich legacy in space-based monitoring. It was 1995 with the launch of RadarSat-1, 2007 with the launch of RadarSat-2, and in June 2019, all things being good, we're going to see the launch of the RCM mission. And what we're going to see is that 3 satellites are going to be put on one rocket, and they're going to be put up into space on the same orbital plane. The data coming from these satellites together are going to provide wall-to-wall coverage over Canada's terrestrial landmass.
From a science perspective, RCM is going to have some new modes on it. Imagine monitoring Canada coast to coast every 2 to 3 days. We will be able to quite literally watch the crops grow.
So Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada truly has had representatives at every step of the way feeding into the decision-making process and the science regarding the RCM mission. We're really interested in the use of the RCM from the agricultural monitoring the state and change in Canada's production systems to better inform the sector.
From the very first day that that satellite is in orbit and collecting and sending data down, we want to hit the ground running, and that means that we have to know how to use that data from day one so that Canadians can make the best use of that space asset.
It's going to be super exciting seeing those first data streams coming down. We've worked very, very hard to build new operational systems to take in this data and use it, and I think that's going to be a very special day for us.
So in my case, for example, I'm taking that raw data, developing a method to identify what crop's being grown in the field, what the health of that crop is, how much water's in the soil.
One of the biggest differences between this RCM mission and the previous missions is that a lot of the imaging data is going to be made available, free and open to other players in the agricultural sector. For example, all levels of government, municipalities, territories, provinces, the private sector, and academia. What we're going to see is similarly innovative applications and uses of those data to support Canada's agriculture sector as a whole.
The one thing I know is that when you put scientists together with an absolutely astounding asset like the RadarSat constellation, we really have no idea what kind of innovation is going to come out.
There was a great investment in this mission. It's going to be launched and it's going to provide a wealth of information that's going to have significant returns to Canadians in terms of the economic benefits.
This is really a very exciting time for radar remote sensing, and this is a really cool place to do research.
As Canadians, we should be proud of this technology. We should be proud of Canada's involvement in the development of synthetic aperture radar. And I think we should be starting to ask the question, where do we go in 10 years from now, and how are we going to make this better?
Okay, that's the first one. Drones in agriculture is the next one. So this one is at a more ground level. I wish we could have shown you some drones in action here at Olds College, but this is the closest one we get to. Also, the applications and the potential benefits that are described here are very similar to what we would see here at Olds College as well. So without further ado.
Welcome to Spring Valley. I'm Stephanie Arnold with the University of Prince Edward Island Climate Research Lab. I'm using precision agriculture with PEI farmers, collecting thermal imagery with drones like this as part of the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada Living Lab Atlantic Initiative. Precision agriculture uses technology to help farmers pinpoint what their crops need across their fields so that they can do the right thing in the right place at the right time. The thermal imagery we collect is used to map drought stress in the crops before they display visible symptoms from the ground. This helps the farmers to anticipate what areas need more or less water for the crops to thrive. More importantly, this helps to conserve water so that the farmers can precisely determine when, where, and how much to irrigate. The added benefit is that it also improves the harvest and quality of the potatoes they produce.
Okay. So this is an example of different technologies that produces imagery to guide the decision maker in terms of identifying areas in the field that need special attention. Also identifies particular stressors that need specific applications in mind, as well as identifying overall growth trends, what is happening across a wide range of fields over a period of time. As you heard from the space agency's talk, they are making this data available from the satellites, and Olds College scientists are using them, incorporating them. And issues that comes from with using satellite data from space include, but it's not exclusive of, for example, cloud coverage. So days when there's a lot of rain or a lot of clouds, those satellite pictures don't work as well. And that's why the scientists then are working on developing alternative techniques and proxies for how to overcome that. Likewise, there are some challenges with drones. Drones usually have a relatively short range. They operate for no more than 30 to 45 minutes or 30 minutes to an hour in one charge. Then they have to be returned to base, and the batteries have to be replaced. The larger the drone, the heavier it is, the heavier is the battery, and that will affect the flight span as well. Graham, I hope the students here know of the Ag Smart conference that takes place in August every year here at Olds College. And if you have an opportunity to come to Canada in August and visit Graham and the other instructors of this course, I hope you are able to come out to the Ag Smart. There's many drone pilots and many imagery consultants that are out there, and they're showing sort of hands-on experience, and they will show you how the technology works. They will not, however, allow you to fly a drone, because in order to fly certain drones, you need to have a license for that. So I think we've talked about this already on how satellites can help further the Canadian agriculture. I'm going to leave that with you. I think the content of that video is the same to the previous one that we spoke to. There is a change in the title here. It's saying going from precision agriculture to digital agriculture. What this is meaning is that with this massive amount of information that is now coming forward and being made available to the scientists, and as they explained earlier, it's available to the public sector, it's available to the private sector. There is a lot of data that has to be sorted through. So that calls for the deployment of sophisticated mathematical models that can go through and clean and sort this information. But it also does require the use of the people with first-hand knowledge of farming, because not all of this information is relevant, and it has to be sorted out. So it requires a massive amount of collaboration. And the term digital agriculture, you will hear when you start, if this is a topic that is of very strong interest of you, you will also hear about, so you will hear about digital agriculture. I'm going to put that in the chat, and you will also hear about terms such as computational agriculture. And this is referring to the massive amount of data that is available from the various imaging, and also available from the machines, because most of the machines, all of the machines that are operating today in most farms are connected. They are producing data. Both the tractor itself and the implement and the combine produces massive amount of information, and synchronizing and patting this together is quite the art. So for those of you that are here today that happen to be quite good with data, and you're big fans of agriculture and food, let me tell you, you got some great career opportunities in this field. There are so many questions to be had. There is so many questions and so few people that can answer all those questions. So precision soil sampling. This is usually something that's done pre-season. It does require a fairly advanced skill set and knowledge to make use of the data. So taking the soil sample is not too complicated. It's about you making use of that information. To show you an example of a soil sampling video, this is not from Southern Alberta. It's from, I believe, the US Midwest, but the logic behind it would be very, very similar also here in Alberta. So let's open that up and see what they are doing.
With MailChimp, you can design more engaging marketing assets in no time at all, thanks to our AI-powered creative assistant.
With almost any job on the farm, the first day or two you do it each year, it seems like things are ridiculously slow. Well, today we're going to talk about how you speed up that whole process with soil testing this fall.
Well, first of all, you have to make a plan. And if your plan is, hey, I'm going to pull some soil tests myself, great. Find your app that you're going to do. The Ag PhD Soils app would be a great place to start. And then get your field set up. You can set those fields up in advance, and actually you have to set the fields up in advance if you're going to do any soil testing out there. So get that job done. It's an office job. You find a rainy day like today, and you can go ahead and get it done. It doesn't take much time to set those field borders and set up your map of how you're going to do your soil testing, whether you're going to grid that or you're going to just pull in certain areas of the field. You can do that all in advance.
The next thing is make sure you get all your supplies on hand. You want to have a soil probe or even multiple soil probes. Maybe you have a team that's going to do this. Maybe it's your family, you have kids. Get people involved in this thing and it'll speed that process up. But you want to have all your supplies around, have all the sample bags, get everything set up, and maybe even do a field right now. Do a tiny little field, do a 10-acre field or something like that. So you get a little practice in and you decide, oh, okay, here's how I want to do this. So you can really go fast this fall. The whole thing is, when fall arrives, you should be able to do 500 acres per day if you're on 5-acre grids. Now, it's going to be a lot fewer acres if you're on 1-acre grids or 2.5-acre grids, but the point is, you want to be in mid-season mode right away day one. You see what I mean? You got to be able to go fast. Also, equip your four-wheeler or your pickup. Get everything ready to go so when that day hits, you say, all right, now we're rolling and we're rolling full speed.
Well, if you're going to do that, Brian, and you're going to use a team, you've got to get everybody trained. For example, I've really enjoyed time spent with my kids out in the field pulling soil tests, and my kids actually do a really good job at it too. You just have to show them how to use the probe. You want that probe to be straight up and down, and you want it going in at the same depth every time. So if you're pulling 6-inch cores, make a mark on your soil probes. That's something you can do in advance too. So you just push them in down to the mark, you stop, and you pull your core. It's that simple.
Perhaps the most important thing when you're getting this all set up and ready to go this fall is make sure that you are going to do a complete test. We see so many soil tests that don't have all the information we need to make good decisions. They don't have base saturation. They don't have micronutrients on there. They don't have cation exchange capacity. Get a complete soil test.
So as you can see, there's several steps here to getting ready to do soil testing on your farm. It all starts with setting up those fields in your app, talking to your lab, making sure you're going to get that complete analysis that's going to help you out, and then getting your team trained and equipped to pull the samples.
Well, whether we're talking about preparing for soil testing or preparing to control our Weed of the Week, planning ahead is really important. We're going to talk about that Weed of the Week coming up next.
So one comment I would like to make about soil sampling, I thought the video did an excellent job showing the mechanics around it. It also did talk about the amount of pre-planning that goes into these sorts of activities. This is the type of activity that's very hard to outsource to someone else. The farmer has to be involved in this. Talking with some of my collaborators that I'm doing research with. One of them is Dr. Terry Griffin at Kansas State University, and he's a bit of a world-renowned expert on precision agriculture technologies. One of the comments he made specifically around this is that it does require some advanced skills. The owner and the operator has to be very comfortable with spending more than a few hours in front of the computer and plan this out and strategize it. So it's not as easy as just downloading an app on your phone and start using it. It does require that planning. This is a technology that was commercialized in the early 1990s, so it's been around for some time, and I'm sure that we're going to see much more headways into this domain as we go forward. Now, next we're going to talk about guidance systems. So guidance systems is something that you implement on the tractor or on the combine that enables the driver, that helps the driver making better decisions. So the simplest system is the guidance aids, which provides guidance to the operator. They're also fully autonomous system where the operator who sits in the tractor or in the combine, as it will be, do not fully control the machine. We're going to show the video of the guidance aids, how that work, and I will leave the video on the autonomous systems for you, for your perusal later.
I needed an online store for my jewelry design business, so Shop Here powered by Google.
When it comes to tilling, planting, spraying, or harvesting, accuracy matters a lot. Evenly spaced rows don't just make you proud, they mean you are maximizing your farm's potential. But achieving consistent accuracy acre after acre is difficult and stressful when manually driving your equipment, especially when running for long days or into the night and under challenging weather conditions. And skipped or overlapping rows increase costs and drop yields and productivity. That's why we are committed to helping operators of all skill levels efficiently and accurately complete their tasks. This has made Trimble a trusted name in guidance and steering solutions worldwide. Our industry-leading products offer peace of mind that the job is done right every time. This is a key part of Trimble's connected farm vision to provide the fully integrated technology you need from the office to the field to get work done smarter, faster, and more efficiently. Let's take a look at the core products that make this solution possible. Whether you have a small farm or a large complex operation, Trimble offers a range of guidance displays for precision agriculture that work with most brands of equipment. Use your displays to map your fields in real time. Drive our automated steering solutions for highly accurate field applications. Efficiently control your implements. When used with our software solution, Trimble displays provide a powerful way to manage your farm from the office to the field. When it comes to driving your equipment, Trimble's automated and assisted steering systems and implement guidance solutions ensure your passes are as perfect as possible every single time, year after year. These products, seamlessly integrated with our displays, automate the driving so you can extend your work hours and focus on field operations, all while improving accuracy and boosting ROI. Our advanced technology includes terrain compensation so you can stay on path, avoiding skips and overlaps, no matter what kind of field you are working. Displays and steering systems are only the beginning. We offer a variety of correction services to maximize the accuracy of your passes, down to 2.5 centimeters. Our radios, receivers, base stations, and advanced positioning services work together to meet your specific requirements. And new solutions are always being added to the lineup. With Trimble guidance and steering solutions, you can lower costs, save time, and ultimately boost your bottom line. Learn more about how you can revolutionize your operations with Trimble's leading connected farm technology.
So that was an example of guidance aid. Sorry. That was an example of a guidance aid, again, developed some 2 decades ago, coming out, and now the systems that exist on the tractors are on here in Western Canada are becoming more and more automated. So now we're going to talk about a different technology. It's equally integral to the success of farming, and this too requires on connectivity. The tractor and the implement has to be connected, and ideally also it does require the farmer to know very well the field. They would be using the soil sampling, the satellite.
No, se escucha esa.
Hello, Maria. Did you have a question?
Listo. Listo. Perfecto. Sí, señor.
Okay, Maria, do you want to mute? Or do you have a question?
I think she just was unmuted, so
okay,
can
good.
carry on.
It happens. It happens. Today I was on an hour-long call with the committee members, and we were all in different buildings. As a matter of fact, some of the people were in a building in Edmonton, and the fire alarm turned on, so they had to leave the building. And then we had to record a meeting, and it turned out that we just had to create a new meet. So all of us had to go and find a new digital address and find ourselves into a new room. And when those that were done with the fire alarm, when they could re-enter into the building, they had to go and find us electronically. And we were all very apologetic, but we also said, you know what, had we all been in the office and the fire alarm had started, we had to stop our meeting, but we could just continue. So it happens. This is what technology does. So let's jump into automated section control. So the automated section control, essentially what it does, the benefit that it brings to the farmer is that it minimizes overlap. And this is very, very important because in addition to Terry Griffin's research on looking at technology and what has been the improvements on productivity on the land and improvement to the bottom lines, technology has also enabled farmers to spend much more time on the field to take on larger areas of land, and the growing season being the same as it is, it's not changing much. It's also caused them to work much longer days. So dealing with fatigue and draining, that and having those technologies to assist you are really key. So let's take a look at the first 3 minutes of the automated section control.
Sam Hardy here again. How you doing? I thought I'd bring you along today and show you a few features in the Valtra Smart Touch armrest to do with technology. Basically, I'm out today fertilizer spreading, as you can probably see behind me. And I'm using a great technology solution from Valtra called section control. Section control is where it'll automatically turn on and off your ISOBUS implement as you come on and off the headlands, for example, or if you go outside your field boundary. It will also turn on and off where it overlaps with what you've already driven. The idea of section control is it will save you an awful lot of input costs due to less overlap. So you're using less fuel, you're using a lot less time to get the jobs done, and you're using a lot less chemicals or seed, for example. Section control can be found from the maps page. Simply press the section control icon on the right hand side and you'll come to this submenu. Within here you'll see 4 tabs. Each one of these are small submenus there. The first one is just an information screen telling you about different sections. The second one is to turn on and off section control. So it's currently in automatic, you can turn it into manual. This is where you would activate section control. Then you can choose between headland mode on and off. So if you have it off, it will spread everywhere within the field. If you turn on headland mode, then it will allow you to drive the inside of the field without spreading on the headlands, so it will turn off automatically at the headlands. Today I'm going to use that, so that's on. And then we have our overlap settings, and for the overlap settings, because we're spreading fertilizer, I'll put we'll put 100% infield, so that's on the inside of the headland, so overlap on the headland. And then for the boundary I'll only put 25% to avoid throwing any fertilizer into the ditch or onto the road. Tolerance for add section I'll leave as 0 for now, and also driving direction overlap I'll leave as 0. With the fourth menu you would find this, these settings are given automatically by the ISOBUS implement you're using, and this is to do with how long it will take for the implement to turn on and turn off when it comes on and off the headland. So there we are, section control is now turned on. It really is that simple. So as we start moving, you will see that as we go over the headland, the sections will open up and the machine will automatically start spreading fertilizer for me. Here we are now as we go over. There you go. You can see the sections opening up down here at the bottom.
and there is the whole machine now spreading fertilizer across the entire width of the machine. Here I am right now, actually coming up to the end of the field, so you'll see this turquoise line is the headland. As you cross over the headland, you'll see that it will actually stop painting in behind me. It will actually turn off the sections fully automatically, like so. Now I'll just spin the tractor around and head up the next way line. This is about the only time I'll be using my hands today, because with auto guide and section control, it is all fully automatic. So yeah, now heading back down the field, and as the implement goes over the headland, it will then turn on the sections fully automatically. When driving.
Okay, we just wanted to see.
Driving with full RT.
We just wanted to see the first few minutes on how the section control works. Again, all major machine equipment manufacturers, such as, for example, Case, New Holland, John Deere, they will all have these technologies implemented in some way, shape, or fashion. So when it relates to automated section control, when it relates to guidance system, they will already be embedded there. So it's something that comes with the equipment nowadays. Variable rate technology. So variable rate technology, that's it's a technology that was developed some 15 years ago, and it allows the user to moderate the amount of either seed, chemicals, or fertilizer they're applying to the land. And traditionally, a farmer would have a field. They would use soil mapping to divide the field into smaller management zones. With a variable rate, it would allow you, depending on the implement and how quick it is and how it's synchronized into precision agriculture, you can actually then manage the field even within the smaller management zones. The use of this technology requires substantial knowledge requirements. It also involves taking on some risk, because not knowing and learning and not getting the proper training for how using this equipment can be a big hurdle. Variable rate technology, particularly for nitrogen application, it seems to be the technology that, relative to all the others that we've talked about today, is the one that is probably lagging the most. And there is some research going on happening trying to explain why that is the case. There is some research trying to understand better what are the forces that are explaining this and so forth. And to be clear, most implements today, the seeder and the fertilizer applications, they already come with this technology pre-installed. What is required is that the operator, when they're in the tractor, they need to feed that information into the display and say exactly what kind of a prescription map do I want to apply here. But as I said, the level of adoption is not as high as perhaps many people anticipated when this became available. We do have a video on the variable rate technology, so let's go ahead and show that right away here. There is also an article, I should say. It's written in a fairly plain language, easy to understand in terms of understanding variable rate. When is variable rate nutrient application the relevant choice for you and your farm, and how should you apply that? I strongly recommend it. We're not going to cover the article today. We're just going to jump into the video here.
Invigor Hybrid Canola has led the way with Invigorate to help you get the most out of your canola. Easy to understand seeding.
This one we have seen already. I apologize. This is a video that we've seen. I will need to make a change in the document. So this is the dot sprayer that is applying. This one should have been different. and that reminds me, 2 days ago, we were supposed to see Dot doing something else, and it doing something, but it did something else in the video. I had uploaded the wrong link, and I think this was the right link for that video over there. So in order to minimize any form of confusion, I'm just for now going to refer you to this article that is here. I'm going to say that technology is as it exists today. It's available, but the level of use is not as high as we would have anticipated. Yield monitors. The adoption rate of yield monitors is something that has became, had not been an issue. It was something that was very easy to grasp and take on. And I have loaded 2 videos for us. I want to make sure that we get the right one. I'm going to show one of them here, and then you have the second one for your previews later. Yes, we're going to show the New Holland combined yield monitor. The second video, that's again Ag with Maddie, and she is in the combined recording this. The reason I'm not showing this video is because the volume is, the noise level is relatively high. So let's just go ahead and show this one instead. Oh. So that was the picture of the yield monitor. So before we talk about the Olds College Center of Innovation and the various new technologies that are available on the farm, I just want to make sure we sort of cover off the main technologies. So we have talked about yield monitors. That was the most recent one. We talked about the precision soil sampling, which is by and large, it's an off-season duty. It does require some manual labor. People have to go out on the field, and within they don't need to do soil sampling every year, but in a regular pattern that is needed. We also talked about the yield monitor with GPS coming up. We talked about variable rate fertility. We showed you a case with automated guidance, and we talked about automated section controls here earlier. So these are the technologies that are on hand to help the decision maker, the farmer, make better decisions using the limited resources they have available, such as farm labor, their own time too, of course, and also managing the rising cost of input that has to be economized more. So at Olds College, where I work, we have a number of, experiments, trials on the go. And if you go to this link that is here, the Olds College map, you will see a listing of current research projects. And so what you have here is the community of Olds, Alberta, and this is where I am working. And what you have here is then the listing of the various type of research projects that are available currently on the way. So there was a project concerning itself with variable rate spraying. It's down here. And if you click on that, the tile should show up and it will tell you where exactly is this happening. It's giving you out the coordinates. It's giving you the descriptors of what is happening. And this information is available for the public. It's mostly used by the research staff and the teachers and the students that at the college that wants to know more about the various technologies that they may hear about. My colleague Daniel Steffner, for example, is working on the optical spot spraying project, and that is up here on this field, and it's within walking distance from campus, essentially. It's giving us an idea of what is happening, and I guess they haven't started with this yet. It says DOT to be confirmed, so DOT, you saw that already, and I guess this is something that's going to be coming up. We had the autonomous ag project missions. So you've all seen the DOT out on the fields, and I believe you've seen the DOT on operating on several fields that are here. So what the DOT is doing, that's the autonomous self-driving tractor that we have that has been seeding, putting on fertilizer, and also spraying too. Now, where are we going with all this? What is going to happen next? How can we utilize these technologies to make better decisions? Well, no one is better to talk about that than our own dear Vice President for Research, Dr. Joy Agnew. She's not able to make it here this evening. However, we do have a fairly recent recording, so I'm looking forward to hear what she has to offer.
The Old College Smart Farm is a 2,800 acre living lab, essentially, that allows lifelong learners, students, industry, and researchers basically access to a living sandbox to do applied research and learn about technologies and developing technologies and how they can be incorporated into Western Canadian agriculture and how they can help derive or drive profit or benefits to producers to improve productivity, profitability, and sustainability of ag production.
Smart ag is not a combination of technologies or sensors and equipment. It's actually a vision, a big picture. That's how we see the future of agriculture. So that includes all different technologies from around the world, and those technologies that are being used for different purposes, including applied research, R&D, educational purposes, and of course for demonstration. Autonomous equipment, drone technology, satellite technologies, geospatial data, different sensors, artificial intelligence, and all those things. So they're basically the components of the future of agriculture that we have right now on the commercially operating farm.
We're working with pre-commercial and commercialized technologies just to better evaluate them and learn how they can function in a real world commercial farm setting. Farming is risky. Producing crops and growing livestock is a risky business with a lot of unknowns or a lot of factors that producers have no control over, whether it's weather patterns or markets or a variety of things. Technology and data can really help mitigate that risk. It's really important for producers in the industry to have a place to go for third-party, independently validated information. So we are an unbiased source of information, but we're also, a testing ground, or we are a place for these tech developers to come and integrate and connect with other technology providers and with the experts they need to move their idea from a napkin or a sketch on a napkin to a commercial product. So this institution is really, setting itself up to be the place to go for access to the information, as well as access to the ecosystem and the infrastructure required to develop these technologies. Growing more with less, basically, is the task that we've all been faced with or set out with. And our applied research program is utilizing technology and utilizing some of these tools that we now have access to really better understand the carbon footprint of agriculture and the potential impacts that we can have on the carbon footprint and other environmental or sustainability indicators by modifying practices or maybe adopting specific technologies. So our applied research programs and projects are really tackling that, question by utilizing technologies to measure enteric emissions from cattle, or the overall carbon footprint or carbon impact of various grazing practices or strategies. So yeah, growing more with less, improving environmental sustainability of farming is always top of mind when we're designing research projects. So the Olds College Smart Farm has grown, I believe, from about 1,800 acres in 2018 to over 2,800 acres and growing as of now in 2021, including land here in Olds, as well as land west of Carstairs, land near Didsbury, and land near Lacombe. So the ability to collect data and conduct applied research in a variety of areas within Alberta just gives us that much more, I guess, confidence that the information that we are learning about the various crop production trials and activities is valid for the various regions or agroclimatic growing zones that exist in Western Canada. So that's really critical, because if we were to only be constrained to doing research right here within Olds, it would be a one-site study, and that really is never scientifically valid or robust enough to really convince users that this technology might actually work for us or this practice might work for us. We need to be able to collect data and do applied research on a wide variety of crop types, soil types, and climate zones.
It's almost unlimited opportunities like nowhere else. And at the same time, agriculture is a noble business. So it's about feeding people, it's about helping people to address their basic needs, and to do it in collaboration and in harmony with the Mother Nature.
So that ends the survey of technologies. So to just really emphasize, so where are we going to this? So we started in farming by having a great deal of agronomic knowledge, knowing what are the chemical properties, the biological properties of the land, understanding the genetics and so forth. Then we come into this area of precision farming, where we use technologies such as soil sampling and satellite imagery. And then we moved over to digital agriculture that we talked about earlier. And really the pinnacle of all of this is to have, as we say in Canada, talk about a triple bottom line. So meeting an economic objective, environmental objectives, but also social objectives. The business of farming has to be sustainable for the farmers, their community, the economy, but also for the environment. And essentially these technologies are all various type of enablers. The technologies that we have covered today are in the, again, this is also from the Upstream Ag Insights of Shane Thomas, where if you imagine you were put all these technologies in a value difficulty diagram. So the thing that is very, very hard to do, which is up to your upper left, that's prescriptive analytics. It tells you what you should be doing. At the very, very first stage, near sort of the base of the diagrams, this is where you have the descriptive analytics. So that's where you have, for example, the yield data, the information from the soil probes. The yield data tells you what are the yield, what were the yields of the farm. The soil probes tells you what is the health condition of the land that you're operating. And then you have diagnostic analytics that is saying, well, there was a cause and effect. So what did you do? What happened? So directive scouting and other technologies that are helping you to avoid or make a better decisions. And then you have predictive analytics. So again, you have the satellite imagery, information on weather data, information about markets and markets prices is telling you, well, the price of wheat is going up, but guess what? The price of inputs are going to go up as well. And also this summer, you might find difficulties hiring on laborers because the labor market is becoming tight as well. Prescriptive analytics basically enables the decision maker to make better decisions. And where we want to take the ag and food system today, and where we hope young people such as yourself, when you, as you continue to make progress into this industry, is finding ways and meaningful ways to draw connections between the various agents in our food system, so that not only do we optimize the triple bottom line of a farmer and farm production, but the entirety of the food system as well. I am not going to show that video here. I'm going to leave that for you. Mars, which is a major chocolate manufacturer, and IBM, which produces computers, computing. IBM is also big into advertisement. So Mars, the chocolate manufacturer, and IBM, the computer company, they put together a short video showing on how this food system can be enabled in the future and how they want that to look. The application is with regards to chocolate, but once you watched it, you also realize that there are no boundaries. This can be applied to almost any agricultural and food product. It's not limited to chocolate. Now I want us to spend a couple of the next 5 minutes or so jumping into the Jamboard and tell us, where do you think these technologies can be applied in your area? From your own lived experience, where do you think some of these technologies might be helpful to you? Based on what you see here today and based on what you might have heard from others as well, also during the chat, what do you think are some of the potentials? So what I am going to do is that I will jump in to the link. I'm going to share that. We need to go on tile number 3. So we're all are going to go into tile number 3. I'm going to copy that, going to put that into the chat. So you all now have editor access to the Jamboard, which means you can technically remove a tile. I'm going to ask you not to do that, but you can all go in and contribute into this. So I see 3 participants.
If you're on your smartphone or a device and you can't access it, if you're not on your computer, just put the ideas in the chat and I will cut and paste them over for you. So if you have an idea, you can just put it in the chat on the Zoom session.
Thank you, Graham. Excellent.
And while they're doing that, maybe just a comment and a question for you, Tomas. There's a lot of technology that you've talked about, and in some cases, they were introduced in 1995 and 2005 and 2010. And do you have an idea of how much utilization, how much farmers are using it today across the country? Is it still early innovators, early adopters type of people? What are your thoughts there? What are your experiences?
So what I will do, if I need to be reminded of this, because I have to edit 2 YouTube clips, but what I will do, Graham, is that I will put in a chart that Dr. Terry Griffin produced not too long ago, where he presented that to at the Kansas State University. He presented that to a farm group, and he has that chart. So my mind currently is a bit too foggy, so I don't recall exactly which of the technologies went up to first. I want to say, Graham, that yield monitor was one of those technologies that was adopted the most readily and was available. Once it became available to the farmers in the community, there was a sort of a joint surge pressure. Now, you have worked in the ag equipment industry. Does that seem to resonate with you, that yield monitors would have been something that would have had a fairly rapid uptick also here in Alberta?
Well, there's a combination of things in yield. I say the first thing that really came was auto steering, where the farmer, as you saw in the picture, didn't have to steer. And that was 1996 or so, 1996, 1997. And when we demonstrated it to customers, almost all of them said, I don't see a need. I can drive my tractor straight, until they realized that there were things that it provided unintended value components to it. And the biggest one was the one you mentioned earlier, which is fatigue. that if you're not driving the steering wheel all the time, imagine driving for 5 hours without touching the steering wheel, how much more relaxed you would be. Well, that's exactly what farmers found. And that uptake, it took a couple of years to get to the point, but within 10 years, I would say 90% of tractors that are in the field, if not better, and Brady might have a point, have that today. In 1996, we did our first yield monitor. One customer bought it, an early adopter. And as I was sitting in the cab of the combine and watching him use the information, he looked over to me and says, I don't know what I'm going to do with this information. I just think I need this information. And so what I'd like to do is ask Brady on his farm, what technologies are you using and what challenges do you see with technology? Would you mind sharing, Brady?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our farm, we're using some of these technologies. One of the main ones being that auto steer on most of our equipment. As I explained in my presentation, we do hay farming as well, and we use some smaller scale equipment for that, and so it's not worthwhile to add that in just because it's makes it actually a little bit more difficult, we found, using some of this technology. Variable rate is something that we're hoping to do, especially as we do grow hay. Additional fertilizer often needs to be added. And so we're looking at maybe how that can work with our spraying, which is probably the crop input we use the most, or the most frequent that has to be applied. That we have some manual rate control where you could turn off certain sections of your spray boom. But that, as much as that's great, that is all based on my own viewing and not precise using additional technology. But a nice thing about some areas in Alberta, and my area for sure, the soil testing that Thomas, that you presented on, it's in some ways I feel it's quite nice having very flat land, as there's less variation perhaps in some fields. But that is also a technology, and probably the most beneficial one that we are using is doing those yearly, usually spring testing of our soils.
That's interesting, Brady. So you do soil testing essentially annually, then would that be correct? Okay.
It's the best way to know how much fertilizer to put on or to not put on. And just to add to that, exactly where Brady's at is where a lot of farmers are, which is what technology is affordable, value added. And there's some notes here in terms of, spraying and fertilizer. And for large farms, that sectional control where it turns it on and off, and that accurate driving can save farmers anywhere from 10 to 30% easily on their input costs. And so what generally drives the farmers to adopt technologies is, can they make it pay? Is it worthwhile? Will it save them money for the cost that they have to put in? Can they save money over top of that? The other complexity is you really need all of this information. So Brady talked about soil samples. What a lot of the technology relies on is different maps of your whole farm that show where the soil's different in the areas, where the harvest was different, where the elevation is different, where it's too wet, where weeds. So it's very complicated, and trying to bring this all together when you're growing a crop that may yield you $400 or $500 an acre, it's difficult to justify that. And in some cases, in previous years, as you looked at those price curves you showed, there are years when you can't afford to do all of that extra stuff, the nice to haves, if you will. So it's a slow development. You looked in 2015, they launched those satellites, or that video was from 2015. 7 years later, it's very difficult for farmers to economically find a way to use that data effectively. So for those of you that are in the farm looking for jobs in farm, there will always be a need for agronomists and crop advisors and specialty advisors for the technology, even to make that product, all this new information, valuable on the farm.
It's called ground truthing, right? That's at least how they talk about it in other disciplines, Graham. Essentially having those the people that are on running on the ground and actually having to deal with the real information and saying, well, you have a boatload of data for satellites. I want to add an additional perspective in addition to what Graham and Brady offered up to with regards to the adoption of the technologies. So about 2 decades ago, when I started working as a research assistant at Purdue University in the School of Agriculture, many of these technologies were coming up in the foray. And fortunately, the School of Agriculture had very good connections with the industries, very similar to here as we have in Olds. So I feel very fortunate, very blessed. And one of the things that we did is that we talked to farmers and also custom operators. Now, custom operators in the Midwest, they brought up 2 additional benefits to all these technologies, in addition to what Brady and Graham talked about. So first of all, in the tractors, in the units, there would be a small printer. And when they were done with a job, if they put on a nitrogen or some other kind of fertilizer, or if they put on some chemicals, it generated a receipt that then they could go to the farmer and they could show that and give it to them in their mailbox. Likewise, if a neighbor who lived on an acreage and was not a farmer felt that there was some inappropriate use of the farmer's land, there was too many chemicals or too few, or the land they were worried about contamination of the water, etc., and they went to complain to the farmer. In the US Midwest, there's a heavy reliance on custom operators. And often the farmer then is a bit of a bind because he can't, how do you prove that it's their fault and where did it come from? However, with this new technology at hand, they now had a paper trail and they could say, you know what, as a matter of fact, this issue is not coming from the way we are managing our farm. Look at here is all our receipts and this is what we've done. So it also helped to build, in addition, it helped ensure farmers that were afraid of being sued by people living on an acreage, but it also helped building a good report, because now they could also say to neighbors and other community members and saying, you know what, we actually are good environmental stewards. This is what we're doing to the land, and you can show it black and white. And it's easier sometimes to communicate that when it's been printed and it's on paper, rather than when someone is saying it and saying, well, I did so versus the other. So there are these larger social benefits to this as well. Graham, you're on mute.
Yes, so thank you for that, Thomas. Just open it up for questions if you want to put your hand up or unmute yourself and ask a question. If there's any final questions for Thomas. Thomas, I keep pronouncing it different ways.
That's not an issue. I see on the Jamboard, Graham, there's some excellent comments and perspective. Clearly, many of you are already familiar, you're exposed to this, you have ideas how you can see this to be used. I'm very excited and very happy to see that. So
great. Well, we're coming on an hour and a half here. If there's any final questions, if not, I'm just looking around. Okay. I really want to thank you for the last 2 days, Thomas, in terms of the information, the resources. I know that a number of you participants have asked for links so you can do that. So having that readily available so we can look into those items. So on behalf of everybody here, I just want to thank you very much for the work you did to put this presentation together in the fine way you've presented it. So thank you so much.
Thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity to come over. It was great to meet you. And if you have any questions or comments, or when you're in Olds, please let me know. I would be happy to talk to you. And if you're by any chance interested in Olds College studies, again, please reach out. We're more than delighted. This was fantastic. It's great to meet you all, and I wish you all success in your future endeavors.
Great, thank you. So okay. Just for all the participants, Friday we will have a recap. And here I'm going to throw an idea out to you, is if you want to, on the WhatsApp, if there's a question that you feel you want some more information on, send it on the WhatsApp and we'll try to include that on the Friday look back. So I had 2 examples of questions that came up earlier. One was on corn, and Thomas has given you a video. I've actually got a couple of comparisons on how we seed corn, even though we don't do a lot of it here, versus how we seed wheat and barley. So a couple of slides to show that. And the other one was organic farming. We can discuss that on Friday as well. And if Wayne Lindwall is with us, he has a lot of experience on farming in Southern Alberta and no-till farming, and he can perhaps bring some color to that as well. So I offer up to you, if you have any questions on WhatsApp, I will watch it, and I'll do a little research ahead of time and make sure we try to have those answers. Also, Friday is Columbia's turn to talk about agriculture in my country. So for those of you in Colombia, Maria and Carlos, I think it's Carlos, right? We're looking forward to your presentation on Friday. And there has to be coffee in there somewhere is what I'm told as well. So great presentation last week by Brazil. I watched it on the YouTube video, loved the presentation. The challenge is there for the next countries. So, and have fun with it. So we will see you at the same time on Friday. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Cheers.